So, welcome this evening. We're meeting for a particular purpose, which is to honor the translation of the book Finding Freedom into Polish. And the translation was done by Bartek, who is translating this evening. So, in this book is about, finding freedom, freedom from the various limitations which land on our lives. Clearly, we would like freedom from suffering for ourselves and for all beings, and freedom from the impulsivity and habit formations which keep us engaged in work which produces more samsara. And of course, the root cause of suffering and all of the reified, strongly real experiences that we have arises from ignorance. In the Indian traditions, they describe our situation as being that of the manduka. The manduka is a frog that lives at the bottom of the well. He's very used to his surroundings. He knows every brick in the wall. He can jump from one side to the other. He is king of his world. But of course, it's a very small world. But he doesn't mind because it's the only world he knows. This is a little bit like our situation. Nowadays, we're fortunate because in better times we could travel, but we also have the media. So we have some knowledge about other situations and the ways different people live. But we still tend to be located in the cultural assumptions that we grew up with, the ways of operation we had in our family of origin. Even if we're not so happy with ourselves, somehow, well, I'm normal, and therefore other people are abnormal. And that can become a barrier to taking risks and stepping out into new possibilities. So this book, Finding Freedom, is divided into three sections. The first is a translation of a classic text, the Dhammapada. The view is the Theravadan view, in the sense that it's concerned with how we should live. It has many different small chapters, all concerned with giving us advice about how to behave well in the world. And this is also important, that there are certain structures which have definite consequences, and therefore we should do what is good and we should avoid what is bad. Many of the chapters are concerned with discernment, being able to precisely and clearly evaluate the relative benefits of or disbenefits of taking particular paths. We know that we have many different sets of criteria for evaluating the phenomena that arise in the world. The specific criteria which are evoked often depends on the nature of the situation. So, for example, if you're out in the mountains and you're very thirsty and you come to a stream, you might want to drink, but you don't know what's lying in the water further up the stream. So if I stay in touch with my thirst and I look at the water, it's obvious that I should drink. But if we climb a little bit further up the hill, we see, oh, there is a dead sheep lying in the stream. So the water that looked pure was maybe not so pure. But because I'm very thirsty, I wanted it to be pure. So the Dhammapada is helping us to explore whether we can establish a frame of reference which will be true under all circumstances. It's such a big question. How shall we live? Now we have the question about the injections against the virus. Many countries are storing up extra supplies in order to protect their own citizens. although they know that there are many countries in the world where they have no medicine is available at all. When this is the case in Britain, where on the news again and again, they report how many people have been injected today. The government celebrating almost everyone has been injected. And inside that national frame of reference, the absence of injections for people in other continents doesn't impinge. So on the one hand, it's very generous or even ethical to ensure that all the old people in Britain are injected, and that the people who have health conditions and might need extra protection, that they get injected quickly. So then the question, well, how big a circle do I draw around myself? In some cultures, they would say, draw a circle around the men. Men are more important than women. Inject the men first. You can see that any specific criteria can be established as the main determinant. So the advantage of studying the Dhammapada is that it helps us to see the implicit assumptions that we bring to bear in any situation. And when we sit inside the comfortable competence of our assumptions, it can feel quite threatening to be challenged. Really? Are you sure what you're doing is valid? Clearly, in modern capitalist economies, making a lot of money is often taken as a sign of success. Big house, big car, oh, that's the sign of a good life. And when we see someone dressed in fine clothes, they seem to have an aura, a feeling tone of specialness about them. But are these valid criteria? Is wealth more important than kindness? On one level, it seems obvious. Yes, we should be kind to everyone. But then we have people like Bill Gates, who made a lot of money. And the general principle of capitalism, you don't make a lot of money if you pay people well. So now he has his huge profit to go around saving the world. Is he a capitalist exploiter or a very beneficent humanitarian? We have to think, okay, what are the basic principles that I want to use to organize my life? And this leads into the second section of the book, which is concerned with understanding the nature of karma. That the section's entitled Mistaken Identities. Because in our life, in a particular situation, when we go to decide how to behave, our potential as a person is constellated into a particular formation by the options which are available to us. And so we come into a particular identity according to the circumstances. So that if I feel, oh, you have insulted me, I feel hurt. It won't be the first time in my life. So there are little bits of scar tissue from previous insults from the family, from school, and so on. So I could be in the identity of the one who is hurt. Or I could go into an angry position in order to stand up for myself. These two positions embedded in my repertoire will bring me to come towards the other person in particular ways. And in that moment, if I'm maybe crying and I say, how could you treat me this way? Then I'm shaping myself into the interaction and giving myself an identity which your interpretation can build on top of. When you see my pain, you might be upset about what it seems you have done to me. You might apologize, or you might feel some contempt. Oh, James is so pathetic, weeping for nothing. And if my response is anger, you might be a little bit subdued by that, or you might feel that I'm a dangerous and unpleasant person, and that in fact you are the victim because I'm now shouting at you. So in interactions, very different patterns of identity can congeal or settle quickly. And when that the inner feeling of the mental interpretation of the situation is released into an active response to the other person, the openness of the possibility in the first moment when I experienced your comment to me is now being closed down as I come towards you with my strong response. That is to say, in expressing myself, I abandon a lot of myself. So one finger is not the whole hand, but generally speaking, one finger it has quite a message, because you get an interpretation onto how the person is. The response takes 5-10 seconds to come out, but it's very easy to take it as a kind of X-ray of the truth of the person. Oh, now you've shown me what you're really like. Yeah, I've got your number. So in this section, which is, it's a translation of a text called The Sharp Weapon Wheel, the explanations of how karma operates are designed to open up a wider perspective on the seeming truth of the moment. Karma, it's a very common word now, people use it in European languages, but essentially it means action or activity. And the key thing about activity is that it brings into form a limited amount of the potential which was available before the activity started. Before I act, there are different pathways, but my action is limiting the formation of, you could say, myself or my tendency. For example, if I go out into the park to eat my sandwich at lunchtime, and I sit down on a bench beside you, maybe we speak, maybe not, but anyway, it's quite peaceful. And then you get up to go away, and I notice that your wallet is left on the seat. Should I call after you and invite you to come back and collect your wallet? Should I slip the wallet over to me and put it in my pocket? I can be ethical or unethical. Both pathways are wide open. But as soon as action arises, as soon as I either call to you or hide the wallet, then the shaping of my body in my gesture towards you is shaping my inner terrain as well. I find myself hiding your wallet and putting it into my pocket or my bag. I'm glad that I've done that. I have won. I'm the winner and you are the loser. And I'm happy with that. The sense of satisfaction or alignment with the outcome of the action seals that particular orientation as something more essential of me. Yeah, I'm the kind of person who can do that. Yeah, I can live with that. That's me. I don't mind. I don't want you to know that I've done this. I certainly don't want the police to know that I've done this, but for myself, I don't mind. So in this way, a tendency becomes massaged into myself as part of my core repertoire of actions which express who I am. Why have I decided to steal rather than to help you find your wallet again? I might think, oh, maybe in my childhood I wasn't given enough love and attention. I would go to school and see all the nice things that other people had and which my parents didn't give me. And therefore, due to the bad behavior or the meanness of my parents, I developed an envious attitude towards the world. So it's not surprising that I would have to look after myself. No one else is looking after me. This way of thinking is not uncommon in the world. I justify what I do by saying it's not my fault. I'm only doing like this, acting this way as a reaction to the circumstances that shaped me. However, in the text, pointing out again and again that the tendencies which manifest in a situation like the impulse to steal have their origin in my own previous activity, with many, many examples. It's a very beautiful text, many beautiful examples. He points out, I am the author of my own destiny. There is no one else to blame. What arises for me in this life is my share, my portion, my luck. It is the consequences or the fruition of my previous actions ripens as myself and the environment I relate to. So my karma is not just my luck in relation to me, whether I'm healthy or sick, whether I am able to do well at school or not, but my parents are my karma. The school I go to is my karma. My boss at work is my karma. I have this boss because of the particular patterning of the tendencies which arise for me. And this is because ordinarily we see subject and object as mutually exclusive, back to back. But in fact, subject and object are linked together and always moving. You don't have an object without a subject. You don't have a subject without an object. You don't have an inside without an outside. You don't have an other without a self. That is to say that the field of experience includes what I call self and what I call other. So the root of karma is twofold: not seeing how I actually am, and secondly, imagining that I am in a particular way. So if the open, all-inclusive field, or what's called the Dhammapada, is obscured for me because I'm focused on detail, then my starting point is me. I'm here and you're out there. I may like you, I may not like you, but I certainly am not you. You are you because you're not me. I am an autonomous individual. I stand apart. I look at the world across a distance of perspective. This gives me a sense of individual identity. I see different options. I feel the freedom to act, but I'm acting in relation to how the environment appears to me. So if we go back to the example of the bench in the park, I see the wallet on the bench, and it feels to me as if the wallet is making me take it. If you saw a gold coin lying on the ground, you want to pick it up. The object made me do it. I'm innocent. So in terms of my ego, I want to say, oh yes, I make my own decisions. I am my own person. But actually, because the subject and object are tied together in a dynamic movement, the site of control or impulse can seem to be sometimes in the object and sometimes in the subject. And both are my world. This is very important in relation to Tantra and Dzogchen and Mahamudra that we'll look at a little bit later. As long as I'm thinking that I am living in the skin bag, I am somebody apart, then I'm establishing a false sense of fixity and stasis. Actually, I'm in pulsation with the world. And this pulsation is not separate from the object which is pulsing with me. So whatever is arising for me, the weather, whether there's war, whether there's famine or plenty, however the situation is, this is the ripening of the seeds or the causes I have planted in the past. So if, according to this idea, because subject and object are born together and always moving, when I adopt the idea, me first, I'm the important one, this closed self-identification is a violence against the truth of the world. And on the basis of this rejection of the other, I take your wallet and I feel happy. You're nothing to do with me. Now, if you imagine that cameras and mirrors didn't exist, how often would you see your own face? In fact, you see the faces of other people all the time. You are my world. So if you are my world, do I want you to be smiling at me or angry with me or scowling at me? This is a basic inquiry which should be entered into by all people who decide to live together. Because if I want to enjoy the sweet moment of pointing out your faults, and now you're looking at me with a completely angry and unpleasant face, I'm now stuck looking at your face. And that happens a lot in marriages because the other and the self are not two separate things. So from the Mahayana Buddhist point of view, when we think about may all sentient beings be happy, I will work for the benefit of all beings. This is on one level altruistic, but your happy face will make me happy. Your sour face will not make me happy. So universal happiness is happiness that I have and you have. This is a win-win situation. But if I start with myself and I want to win, then I want to win over you. So my winning is dependent on you losing. And your losing makes me happy because I won, because I don't want to care about you. But my life is co-emergent with yours. So this is a very central Buddhist understanding, dependent co-origination. My life is not a little island that I live on. My body is not a fortress that I live inside. My body is a site of participation into the world I share with others. So suffering arises from ignorance and attachment, ignoring the fact that self and other arise from the same ground, that you, as I experience you, arise due to causes and conditions, and I, as I experience myself, arise due to causes and conditions. So neither you nor I have some fixed, definite essence of personal identity inside us. How I am depends on you. I am not autonomous. The delusion of autonomy is the basis for the accumulation of karma. Because even if I say, I will work for the benefit of all beings, there is me and there's other beings. I want to help them, and they are not me. So there is a mood of warmth or inclusion towards the other, but at the same time, there is an affirmation that I am not them. So in Buddhism, there's certainly in Mahayana Buddhism, there's a slight suspicion around talking too much about love and kindness. What can I do to make you happy? That sounds quite generous, but it doesn't dissolve the basic separation of subject and object. And of course, if I'm offering to do something good for you, there's also a slight self-referential gain in this. Oh, what a good person I am to do such a thing. So even kindness and compassion and generosity can increase the sense of the autonomous subject. So in the second part of this middle section, the author is highlighting that in order for compassion and pure intention to arise, we have to dissolve the delusion of being a separate ego self. So it's a very, very interesting account of how to free oneself to be oneself without being oneself. Because all the Buddha's teachings go in the same direction. Whenever there is reification, solidification, objectification, it generates the sense of inherent existence. And the true existence in the person can also be projected out into the country. So you might think, oh, the Crimea, this belongs to Russia, or it belongs to Ukraine. Both countries believe that it belongs to themselves. So the person with the bigger gun and the person who is happier to shoot first, they get the country. This is a particular understanding of ethics. We trace it back to Machiavelli, that might is right. Or as Mao Zedong said, power grows out of the barrel of a gun. And not just power, but ownership and entitlement. Tibet belongs to China. 20 years ago, you used to see on the people's cars little stickers of Free Tibet with the Tibetan flag. But that's gradually faded away because clearly, functionally, Tibet is part of China. When the ego as a self-referential function manifests into the world in an individual body or in a national identity, it causes trouble. Because when the ego feels entitled, this is a feeling of unimpeded movement. And this is a nice feeling. And the enjoyment of that feeling gives us a sense, oh, I could expand a little bit more. And if I expand and feel comfortable and you have to shrink and don't feel so comfortable, oh, that's your luck. So in this text, the sharp weapon wheel is pointing out that when your gaze is fixed just on this situation, which you think you can define, this moment, which you think you can define, you're likely to act unwisely. So this sharp weapon wheel, like a big old cart wheel with blades on the outside, rolls around and comes back. You may, when you do something towards another person, you may feel you throw something over to them. But this Dharma teaching is saying, what you throw is a boomerang. It comes back to you. And the strange thing is, when it comes back to you, you forgot that you ever threw it because it was thrown in some previous lives. So this brings us to this question of rebirth and many different existences. Buddhism has never been concerned with just one life, both for the energetic or ethical reason of the nature of karma. So the saying would be, if you want to know about your actions in your previous life, look at your body now. And if you want to know about your body in a future life, look at your actions now. Cause and effect turn like a great wheel. Sooner or later, the effect comes back. With our modernist onward and upwards orientation in Western culture, there was a lot of confusion at first as to whether one should believe in climate change. Now, of course, what we do has some consequences, but science will find a solution. Capital will find a solution. But now we start to see more, actually, the consequences of our actions come back to us. And because we were careless in the time of the cause, when the time of the result starts to manifest, we're not sure how to relate to it. Should we ban coal-fire electricity generating stations? Well, in some countries they say, well, we are entitled to use this because these Western European countries, they've done it for a long time, over 100 years. And now why shouldn't we do it? We've had coal, we want to get electricity. It's our turn. You guys ate the big meal and now you want to shit on us. This is not fair. So when you think in this way, the Buddhist notion of cause and effect becomes very difficult to understand. In this shared field of experience, all actions have an impact for self and for other. And so we need to examine, do I exist? What does it mean to say I exist? You exist. I look at your image and I say, oh, you exist. Oh, if I look at your image, I say, oh, you are Bartek, you live in Poland. So when we start to study Mahayana Buddhism, we say, no, this is your mother from a previous life. We have been connected for a very long time. And how you are and how I am are already connected. Since you have been my mother and done so much for me, how can I say I don't care how your life is? Imagine if that point of view was to be taken up by politicians and economists. And especially when you have the teachings in a traditional way, they say, towards everyone, towards all other sentient beings, you exist as a debtor. You are in debt to them for what they have done. Life begins with obligation. This is a very different way of proceeding from starting with entitlement. So there's a lot of very interesting reflection in the middle section. And the final part is a collection of short Dzogchen texts. In Dzogchen, we are concerned with the relation between what manifests and the ground of the manifestation. The first two parts of the book are highlighting for us that everything is experience. If you relax out of the delusion of there being separate self-existing entities, then you start to see that everything is moving together as an emergent field. There is this revelation or disclosure of this moment in its completion. And the basis for that is our mind. When we first study these things, it's a bit of a headache because we have so many different ideas of what the mind is. So in Buddhism, the mind is never referring to the mental activity of the brain. In Dzogchen in particular, we sit and relax and open, and then we look for the mind. The looker, who is used to looking out, turns to look at the looker. Who is the one who is here with thoughts and feelings and memories? So our normal or habitual or cultural orientation is to think, I am the subject and I look out at the object. And we take it for granted that the subject exists and the subject is me. I see this, I want this. But when we sit in a relaxed way and allow thoughts and feelings to move, and then try to just find out who is the thinker, who is the feeler. Does this thinker have a shape, a color? Is it recognizable? Is it like an apple or a tree? We can describe apples, we can describe trees. They have characteristics, color, size, and so on. If I look for my mind, can any of these identifiers or signs or categories, can they find anything in the mind which they can define or fix? So again and again and again, we look and look and look. We're not looking with a dogmatic conviction, because if you start with an axiom or a conceptual belief and you construct a particular interpretation, then you can look at your construct. It is not intrinsic, it is artificial. You have put it together. This is the basis of Western philosophy. A lot of thinking and the development of models and systems. Thinking gives rise to thinking. Is the mind just a thought? So the more you look, you get a direct clarity. The mind is not a thing. It's not like anything. Ungraspable, and yet always generous, always showing this infinite variety of appearances. These appearances arise in the space of the mind. When I look for the height of the mind or the extent of the mind, I don't find any limit. The more we look and look, we see the mind is infinite. Now, this is very strange if you think, yeah, but I'm just me, I'm this one person. How can my mind be infinite? Because I'm just me. You're starting from an axiom, from a fixed belief that you know who you are. Or you are a very bad scientist. You're bending the facts to support your hypothesis. We're going to put the hypothesis into question. I exist. My mind exists. Okay, let's see. Let's look again and again. Various conclusions about the mind arise. Sometimes it seems to be resting in a sensation, sometimes like a feeling. The encouragement is always, don't do anything with that. Just stay with the conclusion which has occurred. And then we find that this wonderful truth, this great conclusion has dissolved and vanished. Concepts are impermanent. The contents of my mind, my thoughts, memories, feelings, and so on, they're also all impermanent. And yet I'm here. If I describe to you how I am, the thoughts and feelings and words that arise in this moment are dissolving just as soon as they manifest. Each of these formations of myself or ingredients of myself has no self-substance. Myself is constituted out of aspects of appearance which have no self. And the more we sit with this, the more we see this directly. Oh, everything is the movement of the energy of potential. The basis is the ungraspable mind. It's described as primordially pure. It doesn't exist as anything that could take a mark from something else, because it doesn't stand in relation to something else. And yet, it's not a dull, empty void, because it's always full of images, appearances, sounds, and so on. So experience, appearances, sound, color are undeniably manifesting, but as the manifestation of the potential of the empty mind. Each moment of manifestation is just this, undeniably this, but ungraspable. So we can't compare this to that, because this as this is vanishing. Now, I might formulate a concept of this, and I might formulate a concept of that. I felt happier yesterday than today. We take it for granted that we make these kind of statements. If you go to see the doctor and you have a pain in your back, they might say, was it worse last week? Is it getting better? Now, pain is insistent. it impacts us. It's undeniable, but difficult to catch it there. And yet, what will I say about it? So when you tell the doctor about your symptom, he's thinking about the concepts that you've used, about the image you have created about your illness or your sickness. He's going to take your temperature. So he looks at the thermometer. What does he look at the thermometer with? His eyes, 5%. With his concepts, 95%. Like that. He knows the average range of the temperature of a healthy adult body. This is his frame of reference. It's a series of concepts. Well, because we have Celsius system, we have Fahrenheit system, we have various ways of categorizing temperature. They're not the same. They're conventional categories. The actual, the immediate, the direct is not a concept and cannot be caught by concepts. So the function of meditation in Dzogchen is to give ourselves a space to release our intoxication with concepts. Concepts themselves are empty. You use a word and it's gone. But they become toxic when we believe that the concept tells the truth. Concepts move the patterning of the field of experience. According to how you analyze things or name them or categorize them, different patterns appear. So when we see that concepts do not actually establish anything as truly existing, then we can relax into enjoying the spontaneous movement of the potential of the ground. And because the ground of this experience is open and without limit, if we rest in this openness, we find that the flow of experience is without any cessation, and that I, me, myself, am part of the flow of experience. I'm not separate from it. I'm not the owner of it. I'm not in charge of it. I'm part of the movement of life, which is the display of the energy of the ground. So this is just a very brief introduction to some of the aspects of the book. When you look deeply into these three aspects, although formally they look rather different, actually they're pointing in the same direction. Now the book is, the translation is finished and the book is being almost ready for printing. It should be available in a month or two. Is there any, how can people get hold of it once it's published? Is there a site for them to go to? I mean, we'll advertise it on the website when we know. So it's in English and now it is in Polish and it should be in German but maybe by around the end of the year. So the books become available. The real question is, are we available to absorb what is in the book? Books on the bookshelf collect dust. Books massaged into the heart generate merit and wisdom and freedom. So giving us ourselves at least some time to study and practice is very important. As we see with the spread of this COVID virus, life patterns can change very quickly. When we develop some understanding of the Dharma in some practice that brings us close to that, we gain a real treasure that can remain with us even when the outer world becomes turbulent. So thank you to Bartek for translating the book. Okay, and thank you to the translators this evening. And next, very soon, we have the last question and answers before the summer break. So I wish you a very good evening. Well, bye for now. Bye-bye. Lovely people. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, James.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Bye bye,
Thank you,
James. Thank
James.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.